welcome to MoonieGuide. Tonight, we take our journey through the grand doors of the Gilded Age, a world dressed in gold and whispering secrets beneath the shimmer. The marble beneath your feet gleams like moonlight, and ahead of you, tall chandeliers spill their light. If you've been part of our little community before, you already know, and if this is your first time here, welcome. Drop a comment telling us where you're listening from and what time it is there, just to share a little moment across time. Tonight, we're stepping into one of the most anticipated ages in history, a time of glitter, elegance, and secrets behind every smile, the Gilded Age. The marble floors continue beneath your steps. Soft light spills from the chandeliers above, and the faint strains of a waltz drift toward you, carrying the promise of a night filled with glitter, laughter, and hidden stories. Every mask tells a story. Every gown glimmers with ambition. And somewhere in the shimmer, a world waits to unfold, full of elegance, drama, and quiet moments you weren't expecting. Before we step fully into the morning, I want you to imagine something. Tonight, as we wander through the gilded halls and the glimmering ballrooms, you're not just a guest looking in, you are Eleanor Whitmore. You are the one waking in the quiet morning, surrounded by chandeliers, silk sheets, and the gentle hum of a household that exists for beauty, grace, and quiet expectation. Every sound, every shimmer of light, every distant murmur of carriage wheels is yours to feel. Every rustle of silk, every tap of polished shoes on marble floors, every faint whisper floating through the halls, you know it intimately because this is your world. You feel the texture of the gowns, the cool brush of velvet, the weight of a carefully fastened glove. You hear the orchestra rehearsing in the next room, the faint clinking of porcelain from the kitchen, the soft laughter of a maid exchanging a private joke behind a closed door. You notice the delicate scent of roses, the faint hint of powder, the crisp morning air brushing through tall windows. This world, with all its grandeur, all its gold, all its secrets, is yours to inhabit tonight. So as we step into the morning together, let Eleanor's world unfold around you. Let the day begin, not as an observer, but as the lady herself, walking, seeing, and feeling the Gilded Age come alive through her eyes. The morning light filters softly through the tall, lace-trimmed windows of the Whitmore mansion, brushing delicate patterns across the polished marble floors, gilded mirrors, and the quiet stillness that lingers after a night of whispered laughter and shimmering gowns. As Eleanor, you stretch beneath the cool, silky sheets, feeling the weight of satin and velvet beneath your fingers, and for a moment, the world beyond the mansion feels suspended, as though time itself is holding its breath just for you. Outside, the faint chirping of birds mingles with the distant clatter of carriage wheels along cobblestone streets, each sound a gentle reminder of a city awakening beyond the gates, a city that hums quietly while you rise. Your slippers brush the soft carpet as you slide from the bed, each step a small connection to the world that waits quietly, polished and poised for another day. The servants are already moving through the rooms, their presence like a whisper, the gentle rustle of skirts, the soft tap of shoes on marble, the faint scent of polished wood and fresh linens. You pass the wardrobe, running your fingers along rows of gowns, each fabric a promise of elegance, each color catching the light differently. Deep emeralds, soft ivories, and silks threaded with gold that glimmer as if holding the memory of 100 evenings. Today, you feel drawn to something graceful yet commanding, a gown that balances quiet authority with effortless beauty. The maids, skilled and silent, assist you with care, fastening delicate buttons, smoothing every fold, brushing your hair with the lightest touch. The air carries a faint aroma of powder and rosewater, mingling with the warmth of early sunlight that slips in through the open windows. In the kitchen, breakfast is quietly prepared, a soft symphony of porcelain, silver, and the gentle hiss of tea brewing. A tray arrives at your side. A steaming cup of Earl Grey curls its delicate fragrance around you, pastries golden and tender, dusted lightly with sugar, awaiting the first careful bite. The morning unfolds slowly, each sensation heightened, the warmth of the cup in your hands, the crisp sweetness of the pastry, the faint notes of an unseen string quartet rehearsing in the distant hall. You pause for a moment to glance toward the garden, where fountains glint like captured sunlight, and hedges, trimmed with exacting precision, stand in. Patient stillness beneath the morning sky. Somewhere in the distance, a carriage moves along the street, the rhythmic clop of hooves punctuating the quiet hum of the waking city. As you move through the house, You notice the subtle choreography of the household, the maids arranging flowers in delicate vases, the butler adjusting silverware for the day's meals, and the quiet diligence of everyone moving to prepare the mansion for its daily rhythm. Their presence is steady, unobtrusive, yet indispensable, each action a silent note in the larger symphony of wealth and order. You catch glimpses of city life beyond the gates, a street vendor moving briskly, the faint cries of children playing, the soft flutter of a newspaper caught in a breeze. Even in this gilded sanctuary, the pulse of the world beyond reaches you in fleeting, delicate touches. Stepping into your dressing room, you feel the tactile magic of your world. Silk brushes against your skin, velvet drapes whisper across polished wood, and the faint glimmer of jewelry, a string of pearls, a gold brooch, a delicate hairpin, catches the sunlight, casting tiny reflections across the walls. Each accessory is a story, a mark of taste and status, a connection to the larger rhythm of society in which you move with practiced grace. The soft hum of conversation drifts in from the adjoining rooms, punctuated by the occasional laugh, and somewhere, the distant melody of piano keys begins to stir. This is your domain, a stage set for the day's unfolding narrative, where elegance is not simply worn, but breathed into every gesture, every glance, every measured step. The gardens beckon next, a serene world where morning dew clings to rose petals, and fountains spill crystal-clear water in gentle arcs that catch the sunlight like falling fragments of gold. You walk slowly along gravel paths, feeling the crisp morning air on your cheeks, the faint rustle of leaves overhead, and the careful symmetry of trimmed hedges guiding your gaze. A servant carries a small basket of fresh flowers, pausing to allow you a moment to inhale the delicate scent before arranging them in a silver vase. From here, the city beyond feels distant yet alive, the faint hum of distant commerce and conversation reminding you that while the gardens are a private sanctuary, life pulses relentlessly just beyond the gates. As the morning unfolds, you pause to reflect on your role, the subtle expectations that accompany beauty and wealth. There is a quiet power in the gaze of others, in the movement of the household responding to your presence, in the balance between the demands of appearances and the hidden reality that not every smile is unburdened, every gesture freely given. And yet, there is a magic here, too. The warmth of sunlight on polished floors, the scent of roses mingling with dew, the soft harmonies of strings from unseen musicians, a world carefully curated to delight and enchant at every turn. Finally, as the day prepares to fully awaken, you take one last moment before leaving the private sanctuary of your chambers. Gloves are fitted, a parasol chosen for both elegance and necessity, and the faint touch of perfume lingers on your wrists and neck. The day awaits beyond the threshold. Visits, gatherings, exchanges, and conversations that will weave the tapestry of your life within this gilded world. And as you step toward the hall, the mansion stretches out in a quiet, golden expanse, each corridor, each room, each soft whisper of silk, reminding you that you are both participant and observer in a world built of light, ambition, and careful beauty. By the time Eleanor moved through the final steps of her morning ritual, the house had awakened fully, though still in the quiet elegance of mid-morning calm. The distant hum of the city outside began to seep through the thick curtains and high windows, a reminder that beyond these gilded walls, life pulsed with a persistent energy of its own. Birds hopped along the edges of the fountains, shaking off the last drops of dew from their feathers, and the sunlight slanted in at a sharper angle, highlighting the intricate carvings along the staircases, gilded frames lining the walls, and the delicate flourishes of painted ceilings. Eleanor's fingers brushed the smooth surface of a marble banister as she descended the grand staircase, each step a careful, measured movement, feeling both the weight and the grace of her station, the echoes of her slippers blending with the faint footfalls of the household staff. The corridors of the mansion were alive with a subdued rhythm, servants moving almost imperceptibly through their routines. The housekeeper adjusted a vase, straightened a rug, and nodded politely as Eleanor passed, while a maid whispered directions to a younger companion regarding the arrangement of linens in preparation for the afternoon. Eleanor's gaze traveled across the rooms, noting the interplay of light and shadow, the warmth of the morning sun glancing off polished wood and silver, the faint scent of roses mingling with the gentle aroma of tea and pastries that lingered from the breakfast tray. It was in these quiet observations, in the delicate dance of her household, that Eleanor felt the subtle pulse of power and expectation that underpinned her gilded world. She understood, with an almost instinctive knowledge, how every gesture and glance contributed to the larger impression she would leave upon the guests and acquaintances of the day. Once she reached the morning room, Eleanor allowed herself a moment to pause, the gentle strains of music drifting through from a small piano tucked into the corner. A maid had begun arranging fresh flowers on the mantelpiece, the soft petals catching the sunlight in delicate reflections. Eleanor's fingers brushed one particularly pale pink rose, noting its subtle fragrance and the smoothness of its petals. She took a slow breath, the scent mingling with the faint aroma of powder and perfume that clung to her skin, a sensory signature of the morning's preparations. In the quiet of this space, she allowed her mind to wander, recalling fragments of the masquerade from the night before. The masks, the shimmer of silk gowns, the soft laughter that carried secrets in its folds, the careful choreography of introductions, bows, and glances exchanged with perfect timing and subtle meaning. The world of society was as much a performance as a home, and Eleanor felt its rhythm in every step she took, every movement she made. By mid-morning, it was time to step beyond the private sanctuary of her rooms and into the larger expanses of the mansion and its adjoining gardens. She moved slowly down the hallways, her gown brushing softly against the floor, gloves fitted carefully over her hands, and a parasol tucked under her arm more for elegance than necessity, though the sun already began to climb higher, promising warmth along the marble paths. The garden stretched outward like a living painting, fountains glimmering in the sunlight, rose bushes heavy with dew carefully, trimmed hedges guiding the eye along curving gravel paths, statues poised with frozen grace, and distant glimpses of the city beyond the gates. Eleanor's footsteps on the gravel were soft but deliberate, feeling the texture beneath her slippers and letting her gaze wander over every detail, as though each element had been placed with purpose just for her to notice. The maids accompanied her quietly, carrying small baskets of freshly gathered flowers, returning them to the main house to adorn the various drawing rooms, their movements fluid and unobtrusive. Eleanor paused to inhale the scent of the blooms, imagining how they would catch the light in crystal vases, how each petal and curve of the flower would reflect the sunlight streaming through tall windows, adding to the already rich tapestry of her gilded world. The fountains gurgled gently, their waters sparkling like liquid diamonds, and the faint hum of the city in the distance reminded her that while her world was contained and curated, life beyond it was alive and waiting, vibrant and untamed. She could almost hear the faint clatter of carts along cobblestones, the distant calls of street vendors, and the rhythm of a city already in motion, a quiet counterpoint to the ordered, polished sanctuary in which she moved. The morning continued with Eleanor taking her first steps of engagement for the day. Perhaps it was a brief stroll to meet a friend in a neighboring mansion, perhaps to review arrangements for an afternoon gathering, or simply to feel the sun on her face as she paused among the roses. Each movement, each breath, each glance was measured yet effortless. Her gloves, soft and supple, brushed against the fabric of her gown as she lifted her parasol against the morning sun. Every detail of her presence mattered, and Eleanor carried herself with the poise that society expected, a perfect balance of grace, confidence, and discretion. She noticed the slight sparkle of dew on the petals, the gentle sway of trees in the breeze, and the subtle play of sunlight across the marble of the fountains, all merging into a world that felt simultaneously alive and suspended in an endless moment of beauty. As she walked, Eleanor's mind wandered gently to the city beyond the gardens. The distant hum of activity reminded her that this gilded world existed alongside a much larger, bustling city, streets lined with people moving with purpose, merchants calling out their wares, the faint clanging of factory bells signaling the start of work for countless hands. Yet here, in the private sanctuary of her estate, these realities felt like a whisper on the edge of perception, just beyond reach, a soft contrast to the perfection and order that surrounded her. It was in this balance, the quiet elegance of the private world against the relentless pulse of life beyond, that Eleanor felt most keenly the rhythm of her place in the Gilded Age, the privilege of observation, the power of presence, and the delicate awareness that every action, every glance, every choice carried meaning. Stepping back toward the house, Eleanor paused at the terrace overlooking the fountain, allowing herself a quiet moment to reflect. Music of the fountains, the light on the marble, the gentle movement of the flowers in the garden, all combined into a soft symphony of sensation. It was here, in these moments, that she felt the fullness of her world. Not just the splendor of the gown or the precision of the household, but the living, breathing elegance that threaded through every corridor, every staircase, every sunlit terrace. The city beyond remained a distant hum, the awareness of countless lives unfolding just beyond the gates a subtle undercurrent beneath the surface of perfection. And yet, it was this juxtaposition, the shimmering gilded world against the pulse of real life, that gave her mornings their quiet richness, their unspoken weight, their hidden magic. As mid-morning gave way toward noon, Eleanor began to prepare for her engagements, the first social visits of the day, correspondence to attend to, and perhaps the arrival of friends for tea. Each detail was considered with care. The arrangement of gloves, the placement of a delicate handkerchief, the soft scent of perfume carried subtly with her, the careful selection of accessories that would speak volumes without a single word. The house hummed quietly around her, each servant attending to their tasks with practiced grace, each movement a reflection of the meticulous orchestration that made the Whitmore estate a jewel of elegance in the city. Eleanor's own reflection in a gilded mirror caught her attention briefly, and she allowed herself a small, approving glance, noting the poise she carried so naturally, the subtle glow of health and presence, the softness in her eyes that belied the sharpness of her mind, the awareness that even in moments of solitude, she was always very much seen. By the time the first guests might arrive for a morning visit or the letters of the day were being sorted and delivered, Eleanor felt herself fully awake to the rhythm of the day. Every detail, from the soft creak of the staircase beneath her slippers to the delicate glint of sunlight on crystal chandeliers, contributed to a world that shimmered with intention, elegance, and quiet anticipation. She breathed deeply of the morning air, carrying with her the lingering fragrance of roses and tea, the faint warmth of sunlight on her skin, and the awareness that she was both a participant and an observer in a world of glittering ambition, whispered secrets, and subtle beauty. And in that suspended moment, standing on the terrace overlooking fountains and gardens, Eleanor knew that this day, like every day in the Gilded Age, would be filled with both the brilliance of appearances and the quiet undercurrents of reality, a delicate, intricate, golden world waiting to unfold around her. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, and the warmth of its light began to spill across the marble terraces and manicured gardens surrounding Eleanor Whitmore's estate. The shadows of the morning had softened, the air now carrying the faint hum of distant carriages and the measured clatter of hooves on cobblestone streets. Eleanor adjusted the folds of her gown, the soft rustle of silk, and lace a familiar companion as she moved with deliberate grace toward the mansion's front doors. A light breeze caught the hem of her skirts, carrying with it the subtle scent of roses, freshly polished brass, and the faint, distant smoke of the city beyond the gates. With her parasol held at a delicate angle to shield her face from the sun, she stepped onto the wide stone steps, feeling the solid weight of her world beneath her, the polished stone, the precise symmetry of the gardens, the gleam of fountains that mirrored the clear blue of the sky. Outside, the streets of the city were awakening fully. Carriages rolled past, their polished wheels and painted panels gleaming in the morning sun. Gentlemen in crisp coats tipped their hats to one another, exchanging polite greetings with the soft elegance of manners honed over years. Ladies, similarly adorned in fine silks and delicate lace, moved with careful rhythm, parasols and gloves as much a part of their presence as the grace of their walk. Eleanor joined this dance seamlessly, her posture impeccable, her movements measured but fluid, each step an unspoken signal of her place in this world. She noticed the smallest details, the way sunlight caught the edges of a mask left from last night's masquerade, the faint sparkle of a brooch pinned at the throat of a fellow lady, the soft glimmer of polished boots catching the reflection of a fountain along the boulevard. Every movement, every glance, every whispered greeting was part of the choreography of society, and Eleanor, as always, moved in perfect harmony with it. Her first stop was the neighboring Whitmore Estates afternoon salon, a gathering designed as much to exchange news and ideas as to reinforce the careful social fabric of the age. The carriage ride there was brief but illuminating. The streets stretched outward, revealing glimpses of life beyond the gilded walls. Servants carried parcels and baskets, merchants called softly from shop fronts, and children wove in and out of narrow alleyways, their laughter a bright counterpoint to the more subdued hum of adults moving with purpose. The contrast was subtle but ever-present. The wealth and order of the mansion districts, the quiet diligence of the households, set against the larger, vibrant pulse of the city that continued beyond the gates. Eleanor observed it all with an almost imperceptible attention, noting the careful balance between her insulated world of elegance and the bustling reality just beyond reach. Arriving at the salon, Eleanor was greeted by familiar faces. Each exchange a delicate negotiation of politeness and subtle meaning. The rooms were filled with the soft murmur of conversation, the occasional clink of teacups and silver spoons, and the faint harmony of a piano playing in the corner, its melody drifting through the high ceilings and gilded walls. The air carried a mixture of perfume, powder, and the gentle warmth of sunlight streaming through tall windows. Ladies moved gracefully between groups, offering polite smiles and soft nods, while gentlemen leaned slightly forward in subtle attentiveness, their gloved hands poised delicately over the arms of chairs or the edges of tables. Eleanor herself moved with measured elegance, engaging in light conversation, exchanging small confidences, and observing the subtle dynamics of those around her. A raised eyebrow here, a slight hesitation there, each a thread in the intricate tapestry of social interaction. Tea was served shortly after her arrival, presented on delicate porcelain trays with silver teaspoons and an array of pastries so fine they seemed almost unreal in their perfection. Eleanor lifted her cup with careful grace, inhaling the fragrant steam before taking a slow sip. The flavor was delicate yet full, a comforting warmth amidst the subtle drama of conversation and observation. She allowed herself a few quiet moments to simply notice the play of sunlight on crystal chandeliers, the reflection of polished wood beneath her hands, the gentle rise and fall of voices around her, and the faint glimmer of jewelry catching the light in unexpected ways. Each detail reinforced the sense of living in a world designed for beauty, elegance, and subtle power. Conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on matters of taste, fashion, and social expectation. Eleanor, ever attentive, noted the subtle hints of ambition in her peers' words, the careful crafting of compliments, the delicate negotiation of status that was always present beneath the glitter of polite smiles. Every sentence carried meaning, every gesture a signal, a slight tilt of the head, a barely perceptible lean forward, a soft laugh that masked calculation with charm. Eleanor herself moved in harmony with this rhythm, contributing lightly, listening more than speaking, her eyes bright beneath her mask, catching nuances others might overlook. It was a dance she knew intimately, each step and gesture a reflection of years of observation, practice, and subtle intuition. After tea, she took a quiet moment on the terrace of the salon, stepping away from the gentle bustle, inside to feel the warmth of the sun against her face and the light breeze against her gown. The view extended beyond the manicured gardens into the bustling streets of the city. From here, she could hear the faint calls of merchants, the distant laughter of children at play, and the measured clop of carriage wheels moving along cobblestones. It was a reminder that while her world shimmered with curated perfection, life beyond the gates continued in its own rhythm, less polished, less deliberate, yet vibrant and alive. She allowed herself a slow breath, taking in the contrast, feeling the subtle thrill of movement and anticipation that came from being part of this larger, layered reality. Eleanor's visit continued with brief introductions, soft exchanges of letters, and shared observations of the world around them. Gentlemen and ladies alike moved through the rooms with effortless grace, their presence both commanding and delicate. Eleanor noticed the smallest details. A fan opened at a precise angle, a soft rustle of a gown as a lady moved across the floor, the faint sparkle of a pocket watch catching the sunlight, and she allowed these details to anchor her in the rhythm of the day. Each observation, each moment of stillness amidst movement, reinforced the sense of being wholly immersed in the Gilded Age, of walking through its halls not as an observer, but as its very heartbeat. By early afternoon, Eleanor prepared to return to her own estate, her mind lightly tracing the interactions of the morning. The carriage ride back offered another window into the city. Children playing along narrow streets, women carrying baskets with practiced efficiency, the hum of industry just barely audible in the distance. The contrast between her curated world and the broader city remained ever present, yet Eleanor moved with grace, poised in her own reality, aware of the delicate balance that defined her life and the lives of those around her. Every glance, every gesture, every soft word of greeting was part of the invisible choreography that governed her gilded existence, and Eleanor navigated it with the calm assurance of one entirely at home within this world of light, shadow, and unspoken meaning. Returning to the mansion, Eleanor's thoughts drifted briefly to the afternoon's appointments, letters to be written, visitors to receive, minor engagements that required precision, poise, and the effortless charm expected of a lady of her station. The sun had shifted higher in the sky, scattering light across the gardens and through the tall windows, highlighting the delicate patterns of lace, the gold trim of frames, the polished sheen of marble and brass. The day stretched ahead, shimmering with promise and expectation, and Eleanor, as always, stepped fully into it, her movements deliberate, her mind alert, and her senses fully attuned to the subtle magic of a world built of elegance, ambition, and the quiet thrill of living entirely within the Gilded Age. The sun had begun its slow descent, scattering a golden haze across the city and spilling soft light through the tall windows of Eleanor Whitmore's drawing rooms. Shadows stretched across the polished marble floors and gilded corridors, intertwining with the glow of sunlight that caught every glimmer of gold and crystal. Eleanor, still adorned in her mourning ensemble, but refreshed with the subtle change of accessories to suit the afternoon, moved through the halls with the quiet assurance of one completely at home in this world. The faint rustle of her gown and the soft click of her slippers on the polished floors were the only sounds as she passed from room to room, the servants anticipating her movements, each step a silent rhythm in the ongoing orchestration of the estate. Afternoon visitors had begun to arrive, their presence measured and deliberate. Gentlemen in impeccably tailored coats offered polite bows, their gloved hands extended with the smooth confidence of long familiarity with such formalities. Ladies, adorned with the soft sparkle of jewels and the careful drape of lace, exchanged soft smiles and delicate curtsies, their voices gentle yet carrying subtle undertones of ambition and intent. Eleanor, fully immersed in the role she had come to inhabit, met each visitor with warmth tempered by grace, listening attentively to soft murmurs of conversation. Laughter that floated just above a whisper, and the unspoken exchanges that existed between those attuned to the subtle language of society. Every movement, every gesture, carried meaning, and Eleanor's own presence was a careful balance of poise, observation, and gentle command. The afternoon tea was set in the sun-drenched salon, the delicate china arranged on trays that reflected the gold of the chandeliers overhead. The room was alive with muted conversation, the soft clink of teaspoons against porcelain, the rustle of skirts, and the subtle hum of piano music from a corner where a young musician practiced, notes floating lightly in the warm air. Eleanor moved among her guests with natural grace, offering a smile here, a polite question there, attentive to the rhythms of dialogue and the subtle gestures that spoke volumes in this world of refinement. She sipped her tea slowly, savoring the warmth and flavor, allowing herself to observe the sunlight filtering through crystal, the gentle play of shadow across gilded walls, and the quiet elegance of her household attending seamlessly to every detail. Beyond the walls of the mansion, the city continued its tireless rhythm, glimpses of it visible through the tall windows and occasionally beyond the terrace doors. Children played along quiet alleyways, the distant clatter of street vendors. Carts punctuated the hum of activity, and somewhere, a carriage rolled by, wheels gleaming in the afternoon light. The contrast was subtle yet striking, the controlled elegance of Eleanor's world against the vibrant, unpredictable pulse of life beyond. She felt the difference keenly, a quiet awareness of privilege and power, of observation and influence, and the soft thrill that came from inhabiting a space at once insulated and deeply connected to the currents of society. After tea, Eleanor strolled through the mansions in her courtyard, where fountains and statues created a miniature world of art and design. The breeze carried the faint fragrance of blooming flowers, the warmth of the sun tempered by gentle shade from the arbor overhead. Servants moved quietly around her, placing small vases of fresh blooms along stone balustrades and straightening cushions on wrought iron chairs. Eleanor paused at a fountain, watching the water cascade in arcs that caught the sunlight like falling jewels. In this moment of stillness, she felt fully herself, aware of her influence, attuned to the delicate rhythms of her world, and immersed in the beauty of a day unfolding according to both design and chance. Visitors for the afternoon called upon Eleanor for brief exchanges, consultations regarding social events, and the occasional discussion of business matters arranged discreetly by her family. Each interaction was carefully conducted, her attention to detail mirrored in the smallest gestures. The tilt of a head, the soft inflection of a word, the measured pause before responding. Eleanor navigated these moments effortlessly, aware of how subtly power, perception, and social positioning intertwined in the intricate dance of the Gilded Age. Even the smallest detail, the way a ribbon was tied, the faint scent of a perfume, the glimmer of a ring catching sunlight held significance, a thread woven into the larger tapestry of her daily life. As the afternoon waned, Eleanor moved to the terrace that overlooked the city and the expansive gardens below. From this vantage, she observed the slow transition of light across the rooftops and streets, the soft movement of clouds casting shadows over the manicured lawns, and the occasional carriage that rattled past the gates. It was a quiet reminder that while her world existed in perfect order and refinement, life beyond it moved in unpredictable, vibrant ways. She inhaled the scent of roses mingled with the crisp city air, feeling both the security of her gilded sanctuary and the faint thrill of the world outside, a world she would interact with carefully, selectively, and always with grace. Preparing for the early evening, Eleanor returned to her chambers to adjust her attire for the coming visits and engagements. A soft hum of activity surrounded her as the household prepared for the next phase of the day. Lamps were lit in preparation for the evening, fresh water poured into crystal decanters, and trays of light refreshments were arranged for those who might stop by. Eleanor attended to the final details of her appearance, smoothing the folds of her gown, adjusting a delicate brooch, and ensuring the subtle placement of her gloves and parasol. Each movement was deliberate, a part of the performance of social grace that defined her existence, yet also a personal affirmation of identity, elegance, and presence within the world she inhabited. By the time the sun had shifted toward late afternoon, Eleanor was ready to meet the day's next wave of interactions. Visitors would arrive, correspondence awaited her attention, and brief appointments would unfold in the rhythm of society that required both attentiveness and poise. Every moment held potential, a conversation, a small revelation, a fleeting glance that spoke more than words. Eleanor moved with the calm assurance of someone fully at ease in her surroundings, aware of the delicate balance of observation, presence, and engagement that characterized her life. And as the shadows lengthened and the light softened, she stepped into this part of the day fully, prepared to navigate the complex, beautiful, and golden world that surrounded her, entirely alive to the elegance, ambition, and quiet power of the Gilded Age. The sun had begun its slow descent, painting the sky with streaks of soft amber and deepening rose, and Eleanor Whitmore's estate felt like it had been bathed in liquid gold. Shadows stretched long across the marble floors of the main hall, dancing alongside the flickering glow of lamps that had been lit in preparation for the evening ahead. The mansion was alive in its quiet, precise way. Servants moved like whispers across polished floors, adjusting cushions, straightening carpets, placing fresh flowers in vases, and ensuring every detail gleamed in anticipation of the night. Eleanor, fully aware of the transition from the measured calm of the afternoon to the subtle drama of evening, moved deliberately through her chambers, feeling the shift in energy as the day tipped toward dusk. She paused for a moment in front of her wardrobe, the morning gown now replaced with an ensemble chosen for the evening. A deep sapphire silk dress, the fabric flowing and heavy enough to catch the light in every movement, accented with delicate lace at the cuffs and neckline. The gown carried weight not just in fabric, but in significance, signaling refinement, taste, and quiet authority. As her maids assisted her in slipping into the dress, fastening each tiny hook and adjusting the folds to perfection, Eleanor felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. Every brush of silk against skin, every careful adjustment of a ribbon or brooch, every soft pat of powder across the cheekbones was part of a ritual she had performed countless times, yet never ceased to feel anew. The preparation for a world of elegance, attention, and expectation that awaited beyond her private rooms. The soft fragrance of rosewater and powder mingled with the faint scent of the evening air drifting through slightly opened windows. Eleanor allowed herself a moment to inhale deeply, feeling the delicate interplay of fragrance and light, sound and texture, as her mind drifted briefly to the events of the day, the afternoon teas, the careful observations of her peers, the delicate negotiations of conversation that carried unspoken meaning. The weight of her world was always present, yet at this precise moment, it felt suspended, a poised calm at the threshold of movement, of performance, of life unfolding like the careful unfolding of a fan. Jewelry was chosen with care. A delicate string of pearls to frame the neck, a small brooch of gold set with pale sapphires pinned near the shoulder, rings that caught the fading sunlight and reflected it in glimmers across the marble. Each piece was more than decoration. It was a signal, a statement, a story woven into the ensemble and into the larger narrative of presence and perception that defined Eleanor's world. Gloves were fitted with precision, smooth and supple, and her hair arranged in a style both fashionable and commanding, soft curls framing her face just so, while the maids secured delicate pins to hold the style in place, invisible unless one looked closely enough to notice. Meanwhile, the household hummed with anticipatory activity. The dining room had been prepared for the evening gathering, tablecloths starched and gleaming, silverware polished to perfection, crystal glasses catching the last rays of sunlight before the lamps cast their warmer glow. Flowers adorned the center of the table, carefully arranged to balance elegance and fragrance, each bloom selected for symmetry and color. Eleanor moved through these spaces as one familiar with every detail, her eyes noting the subtle perfection of the arrangements. The faint scent of roses mingled with the richer aroma of polished wood and simmering dishes, and the quiet efficiency of those who moved around her to make this night possible. A soft knock announced the arrival of early evening correspondence, letters that had been delivered in the late afternoon and awaited her attention. Eleanor moved to her writing desk, a piece polished to a warm gleam, its drawers filled with paper, sealing wax, and pens of fine craftsmanship. She broke the seal of each letter with careful attention, reading in the gentle light, her expression calm yet attentive. The letters carried invitations, subtle requests, and the occasional note of congratulations or concern, all threaded with the delicate formality expected in polite society. As she read, she allowed herself the faintest of smiles at the phrasing, at the careful crafting of words to convey not just meaning but status, awareness, and nuance. The evening air, now cooler and tinged with the faint scent of night-blooming flowers, drifted in through the open windows as Eleanor prepared to leave her private chambers and descend into the public space of her mansion. The soft click of her slippers on marble floors echoed lightly, a measured rhythm in the quiet anticipation of the household. Servants held doors with subtle bows, their movements precise, unobtrusive, yet full of the invisible choreography that made the evening possible. Eleanor's eyes swept across the rooms, taking in the interplay of light and shadow, the subtle warmth of lamps reflecting off gilded surfaces, and the anticipation carried in the air like a faint perfume. As she approached the grand hall, she paused for a moment to feel the atmosphere settle around her. The soft hum of conversation beginning to filter from adjoining rooms, the gentle clink of glassware being prepared for the evening, the faint rustle of silk and lace as her guests arrived in measured, elegant procession. The transition from the private calm of her chambers to the vibrant, deliberate energy of the evening was subtle but unmistakable, a gentle shift in rhythm that Eleanor navigated with ease. Her posture remained perfect, her movements graceful yet natural, and her mind attentive to every detail, every expression, every nuance that signaled the unfolding of the social performance of the Gilded Age. Dinner preparations continued as the hour approached. The kitchen, a realm of quiet, precise activity, sent up aromas that teased the senses. Roasted meats, fresh bread, subtle hints of herbs and delicate sauces, mingling with the faint sweetness of fruits and desserts awaiting their presentation. Eleanor could hear the occasional murmur of conversation as staff coordinated, the measured steps on polished floors, the faint clink of trays and silverware. She moved through these spaces with awareness, not as a participant in the labor, but as the quiet orchestrator whose presence set the tone for the evening. Each glance, each nod, each whispered instruction carried weight and significance, though delivered with subtlety, like the gentle turning of a key in a lock, unseen yet essential to the perfection of the unfolding event. As dusk deepened, Eleanor took one final moment on the terrace overlooking the gardens. The fountains glimmered in the fading light, their waters catching the last golden rays and scattering them in delicate reflections. Shadows lengthened, softening the edges of statues and hedges, and the distant hum of the city settled into a gentle rhythm, punctuated by the occasional carriage wheel or laughter from unseen streets. Eleanor inhaled deeply, letting the fragrant air fill her senses, grounding herself in the poised anticipation of the evening ahead. She felt the thrill of the night yet to unfold, the elegant drama of gatherings, conversations, and glances that would weave together into the tapestry of her Gilded Age existence. And so, fully adorned, fully prepared, and fully present, Eleanor stepped from the terrace back into the glowing halls of her mansion, ready to meet the evening with grace, poise, and the quiet assurance of one entirely at home in a world that shimmered with beauty, ambition, and subtle, irresistible power. The night had only just begun, and yet it promised a cascade of moments, each intricate, each deliberate, each shimmering with the quiet brilliance of a Gilded Age evening waiting to unfold. The lamps in the grand ballroom flickered to life, their glow spilling across polished floors and gilded walls, reflecting off crystal chandeliers that sparkled like captured starlight. Eleanor Whitmore entered through the ornate double doors, her gown flowing in a cascade of sapphire silk that caught the lamplight with every careful step. The air was alive with subtle energy, the murmur of conversation, the soft rustle of gowns and gloves, the faint clinking of glasses, and the underlying cadence of music preparing to swell. She paused for a moment, letting her gaze travel across the room, taking in the luminous array of guests, ladies adorned with delicate lace and precious gems, gentlemen in crisply tailored coats and polished shoes, all moving in a choreography of social grace that seemed as natural as breathing. A hush of anticipation rippled through the room as the orchestra began, strings first, the delicate bowing of violins weaving a gentle, elegant melody. Eleanor moved with poise toward the center of the hall, each step measured yet fluid, feeling the weight of her gown and the subtle tug of the fabric against her skin, a reminder of the careful preparation that had brought her to this moment. The music swelled, a harmonious tide that seemed to sweep through the assembled guests, binding them in the shared experience of beauty, rhythm, and silent recognition of one another's place within this gilded world. Gentlemen approached with the polite formality expected in a dance of introductions and invitations, bowing slightly, hands extended in polite gesture. Eleanor offered a delicate smile, nodding in acknowledgement, accepting or declining with subtle grace. The dance floor soon filled with swirling skirts, polished shoes gliding across the marble, and the faint whisper of silk brushing against itself. Eleanor's movements were precise, yet effortless, each step a reflection of both inner confidence and the careful attention to rhythm and form that the society of the Gilded Age demanded. She felt the music rise and fall, matching her pulse to the cadence, each note a thread weaving her into the very fabric of the evening. Beyond the dance, the room thrummed with quiet exchanges of conversation. Guests spoke softly in corners, their words laced with the subtle dance of status, ambition, and observation. Eleanor moved among them with awareness, nodding the careful tilt of a head. The slight hesitation before a smile, the flicker of recognition in a glance. Every gesture carried meaning, a polite compliment, a measured acknowledgement, a whisper of intrigue. Eleanor, fully attuned to these subtleties, navigated the spaces between words and glances with gentle assurance, responding with warmth, curiosity, or quiet attentiveness as each situation required. Crystal glasses caught the light as champagne and fine wines were offered, delicate laughter mingling with the harmonies of music and conversation. Eleanor sipped with measured elegance, feeling the cool liquid against her lips and the faint sparkle of bubbles as they danced across her tongue. Around her, the room shimmered with color, gowns in every hue imaginable, jewels glittering subtly beneath the lamplight, the gold trim of chandeliers, the polished floors reflecting every movement. The sensory richness of the evening enveloped her. The faint scent of roses mingled with perfume, the soft warmth of a crowded room balanced against the cool marble underfoot, and the intricate patterns of conversation and connection threading through every interaction. Eleanor paused briefly to glance toward the balcony overlooking the gardens. The moon, rising softly in the evening sky, cast silver light over fountains and hedges, highlighting the symmetry and beauty of the estate in quiet contrast to the vibrant energy inside. She inhaled the cool night air, letting it mingle with the warmth of the ballroom, grounding herself in the moment, aware that each detail, the music, the laughter, the subtle play of light on crystal and silk, was part of a carefully curated world that she inhabited fully. As the evening progressed, Eleanor was drawn into conversation with a circle of ladies, sharing observations on fashion, art, and the subtle currents of social life. Each word carried weight, each phrase measured to maintain poise, yet Eleanor found delight in the shared laughter and quiet camaraderie that wove through their exchanges. Gentlemen occasionally approached, offering comments, inquiries, or invitations, and Eleanor responded with grace, balancing attentiveness and subtle discretion. The room became a living tapestry of light, movement, and sound, each guest a thread contributing to the shimmering whole. The music shifted, a gentle waltz filling the room, and Eleanor, extending a gloved hand, joined a partner in the dance. The rhythm of the ballroom enveloped her, each step and turn precise yet fluid, her senses attuned to the rise and fall of the melody, the subtle shifts in movement, the delicate contact of hands, the shared understanding of rhythm and form. Around her, dancers moved in patterns that seemed both spontaneous and meticulously practiced, a living artwork of grace, elegance, and social performance. She felt the thrill of motion, the gentle exertion of movement, and the quiet delight of being fully present in this gilded world. As the evening wore on, Eleanor allowed herself moments of quiet observation from the edges of the dance floor. She noticed the gentle camaraderie of longtime friends, the cautious politeness of new acquaintances, the subtle flares of ambition hidden behind smiles and polite words. She could trace the delicate choreography of glances and gestures, understanding the silent conversations that unfolded alongside spoken language. It was a reminder that the Gilded Age was not merely a world of beauty and light, but of nuance, calculation, and subtle negotiation, a realm in which every detail mattered and every presence contributed to the unfolding narrative. Refreshments were offered at intervals, delicate canapes, fruit arrangements, sweet pastries, and the finest confections, each presented with elegance and care. Eleanor moved lightly among the trays, sampling here and there, engaging briefly with servers, noting the interplay of light on silver and crystal, the arrangement of flowers and linens, the subtle fragrance of the offerings mingling with the warm atmosphere. Even these small details contributed to the sense of perfection, the quiet orchestration that made the evening not merely an event but a living experience, one she navigated with the calm awareness of both participant and observer. As the night deepened, Eleanor's steps carried her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, where a small group had gathered around the piano. The melody was softer now, more intimate, notes drifting like whispers through the space, providing a backdrop to gentle conversation and reflection. She paused, listening, letting the music carry her thoughts to places both remembered and imagined, feeling the subtle weight of her presence in the room and the delicate threads of connection woven through every glance, every word, every gesture. The evening continued in this elegant rhythm, a delicate interplay of movement, sound, light, and conversation, each moment flowing seamlessly into the next. Eleanor felt the soft thrill of the night, the quiet power of observation, the gentle joy of connection, and the unmistakable weight of being fully alive in a world both dazzling and deliberate. Each glance, each word, each subtle nuance of expression contributed to the intricate fabric of the evening, a tapestry of elegance, ambition, and beauty that stretched across the gilded halls of her home and beyond, into the city that pulsed softly in the distance. And as Eleanor stepped briefly onto a balcony to inhale the night air, the cool breeze mingling with the warmth still lingering from the ballroom, she felt the full resonance of her day, the delicate perfection of morning, the gentle rhythm of afternoon, and now the shimmering, luminous pulse of the evening. The Gilded Age, in all its brilliance, subtle intrigue, and carefully orchestrated splendor, had unfolded around her, and she was at once a participant, a witness, and a quiet, unspoken force within its golden narrative. The last strains of the piano's melody lingered in Eleanor Whitmore's ears as she stepped away from the bustling ballroom, leaving behind the polished marble floors, glimmering chandeliers, and the soft swirl of silk gowns and polished shoes. The evening had reached its crescendo, the laughter, conversation, and music now fading into the gentle hum of retreating footsteps and quiet murmurs as guests began to take their leave. Eleanor lingered for a moment in the grand corridor that connected the ballroom to her private chambers, feeling the subtle shift in energy as the world moved from public spectacle to the hushed intimacy of night. The gilded halls, once alive with movement, now seemed to breathe more slowly, the soft glow of lamps casting delicate shadows on polished surfaces and ornate moldings. As she descended the quiet staircase, the muffled sounds of the city beyond the mansion gates became more pronounced in contrast to the near silence of her private space. The occasional carriage rumbled along cobblestone streets, faint voices echoed through narrow alleyways, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked softly, its call swallowed quickly by the gentle night. Eleanor felt herself both part of this wider world and entirely insulated from it, the careful choreography of her day giving way to the reflective rhythm of evening. Each step down the staircase, each pause at the landing to admire the interplay of shadow and lamplight, grounded her in a world she both inhabited and curated, a delicate balance of observation, presence, and quiet control. Reaching her chambers, Eleanor allowed herself a slow exhale, the long day now folding into the private sanctuary she had prepared for herself. Servants moved quietly around her, removing traces of the evening's bustle, folded napkins, polished silver, and empty glasses, their movements soft, deliberate, and nearly invisible. Eleanor watched them briefly, noting the precision and grace that mirrored her own careful movements, the subtle understanding that even in these small acts, the elegance and discipline of her world were maintained. She felt a quiet thrill in the orchestration of these details, a reminder that the Gilded Age was as much about the unseen labor, the invisible threads, and the soft hum of preparation as it was about glittering events and outward display. The soft rustle of her gown accompanied her steps as she approached a window that overlooked the gardens, now bathed in silvery moonlight. The fountains glimmered faintly, their waters catching the soft luminescence and scattering it across trimmed hedges and stately statues. Eleanor inhaled deeply, feeling the cool night air mingle with the lingering warmth of the ballroom, a gentle reminder that the day had moved seamlessly from sunrise to dusk to night, each stage marked by careful attention, subtle performance, and the quiet thrill of living fully within her gilded world. The distant city hummed softly beyond the walls, a faint reminder of life outside, vibrant and untamed, yet Eleanor remained entirely anchored in the sanctuary of her estate. Sitting at her writing desk, Eleanor allowed herself the luxury of reflection. The letters she had received, the conversations she had navigated, the dances she had performed, and the quiet observations she had made all wove together into the intricate tapestry of her day. Each moment was a note in the symphony of her existence, a carefully measured cadence that carried both public display and private awareness. She dipped her pen into ink, allowing her thoughts to flow onto the page, a journal of subtle reflections, a private record of nuance, beauty, and the quiet triumphs of social grace. The soft scratch of quill on paper was accompanied by the faint rustle of silk as she moved, a gentle rhythm that matched the lingering heartbeat of the evening. A small tray of refreshments awaited her, delicate pastries, the lingering sweetness of tea, and the faint aroma of fruit. Eleanor sampled them slowly, savoring each bite with the same deliberate attention that characterized her day. Each flavor, each scent, each texture was noticed, absorbed, and appreciated, a sensory meditation on the quiet luxury of her world. She allowed herself a soft smile at the memory of the evening's dances, the conversations that had hinted at ambition and subtle intrigue, the fleeting glances that carried hidden meaning. In these private moments, Eleanor felt both the weight and the freedom of her station, the duality of presence and observation that defined her life in the Gilded Age. The moon had risen higher, scattering silver light across the estate, and Eleanor moved to a quiet terrace to take in the view once more. The gardens, fountains, and statues appeared almost ethereal under the night sky, the delicate fragrance of night-blooming flowers mingling with the cool breeze. The distant hum of the city, now subdued, reminded her that life beyond her gates continued, persistent and uncurated, while she remained within her carefully orchestrated world of elegance and refinement. Standing there, she allowed herself a moment of stillness, absorbing the quiet beauty, the interplay of light and shadow, the subtle symphony of scents and sounds, and the gentle realization that the Gilded Age was as much about these private, reflective moments as it was about grand spectacle. The day, now folding into night, left Eleanor with a sense of completion and quiet anticipation. The rituals of the morning, the engagements of the afternoon, and the dazzling gala of the evening had all carried her through a spectrum of experience, each step measured, each movement deliberate, and each interaction significant. As she prepared to retire for the night, Eleanor reflected on the intricate balance of her life, the curated public presence, the private sanctuary, and the subtle awareness that connected her to both. It was a delicate dance, performed with grace and quiet confidence, a life lived fully within the golden narrative of the age she called her own. And so, as the lamps dimmed softly in the corridors, the last whispers of servants' footsteps faded, and the estate settled into its nocturnal rhythm, Eleanor allowed herself to close her eyes, to inhale the lingering fragrance of flowers and perfume, to feel the cool silk of her gown against her skin, and to drift into the quiet intimacy of night. The Gilded Age, with all its brilliance, ambition, and subtle drama, had unfolded completely, leaving her suspended in the gentle, luminous embrace of her world, ready to greet the next day with the same poised elegance, awareness, and quiet joy that had carried her through this one. The mansion had settled into quiet by the time Eleanor Whitmore rose from her writing desk, leaving behind the soft scratch of quill on paper and the gentle glow of the lamp that had illuminated her private reflections. The ballroom, now emptied of glittering gowns and polite laughter, seemed almost suspended in memory, the echo of music lingering faintly in the gilded corridors. Eleanor moved through the hushed halls, her slippers making only the faintest whisper against polished floors, aware of the subtle rhythm of her own presence in the quietude of the estate. Each step was deliberate, unhurried, a measured cadence that allowed her to take in the beauty and serenity of the night as she transitioned from the public elegance of the evening into the intimate privacy of her chambers. She paused briefly at the grand windows that overlooked the gardens. Moonlight spilled across the hedges and fountains, scattering silvery reflections across statues and walkways. The air was cooler now, carrying the delicate scent of night-blooming flowers and the faint rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Eleanor inhaled deeply, letting the stillness of the night settle over her, a calm contrast to the vibrant, orchestrated energy of the evening's gala. The city beyond the gates hummed softly in the distance, a gentle reminder of life continuing beyond her carefully curated world. Yet she remained fully ensconced in the sanctuary of her home, where every detail, light, fragrance, sound, was arranged with precision and care. Returning to her chambers, Eleanor began the ritual of preparing for the night. Her gown was carefully loosened, silk and lace shifted, and a softer robe replaced the structured elegance of the evening attire. A faint brush of her fingertips smoothed the fabric, adjusting it to settle comfortably around her, while a maid carefully arranged the folds of her night garments with the same meticulous attention that had been given to her attire all day. The scent of rosewater lingered faintly on her skin, mingling with the soft warmth of the evening air and the faint aroma of polished wood and scented candles that had been lit to create a gentle glow in her room. A small basin of water was prepared, delicate soap and towels arranged precisely on a silver tray. Eleanor washed her hands and face with slow, deliberate movements, letting the cool water cleanse both body and mind. The rhythm of this act was almost meditative, a subtle reminder that even amidst a world of elegance and expectation, there existed moments of personal care and introspection. She dried her hands with a soft cloth, noting the gentle sheen of her skin and the lingering fragrance of scented soaps, allowing herself to absorb the quiet intimacy of these nightly rituals. Seated before her vanity, Eleanor attended to her hair, carefully undoing the intricate styles of the evening, letting curls and braids fall gently into softer forms for the night. Each movement was deliberate, a quiet acknowledgement of the body and presence she had maintained throughout the day. She traced the contours of her features with gentle hands, smoothing the faint marks of makeup that had accentuated her presence, and allowed herself a soft smile in. The mirror, the reflection staring back, was both familiar and new, the same Eleanor who had danced, conversed, and observed, yet softened now by the intimacy of solitude and the gentle fading of light from her gilded world. With her preparations complete, Eleanor moved to her private writing nook once more. She allowed herself to pen a few final thoughts, not for society or public display, but for herself alone. Observations from the evening, reflections on fleeting glances, conversations, and emotions mingled on the page. The scratch of her pen was gentle, almost a whisper against the soft hum of the estate, a companion to the subtle night sounds, the flutter of leaves, the distant clatter of a carriage, the muted steps of a night servant checking lamps and doors. These moments were hers alone, a delicate pause between the grandeur of public life and the intimate sanctuary of rest. Later, Eleanor wrapped herself in the soft folds of her bed linens, the canopy casting gentle shadows in the warm lamplight. She allowed her mind to drift back over the day, the morning's carefully curated routines, the afternoon's subtle negotiations of social grace, the evening's dance of elegance and ambition. Each memory was vivid, yet softened by the passage of time and the gentle embrace of night. She could still feel the weight of her gown, the brush of her gloves, the delicate press of a hand in dance, the warmth of conversation, the soft murmur of music, all woven together into a tapestry of experience that was hers, fully and irrevocably, in the golden thread of the Gilded Age. Occasionally, she rose to the window to look out over the moonlit gardens once more, letting the serene landscape fill her senses. The fountains glimmered, the statues stood in quiet dignity, and the hedges cast gentle shadows across the pathways. The night air was crisp, fragrant, and calming, carrying with it the faint reminder that life moved onward, that the city beyond the gates pulsed with quiet vitality, and that her place in this world, both luminous and deliberate, was hers to inhabit fully. She inhaled slowly, letting the fragrance and the cool breeze mingle with the warmth and memory of the day, feeling herself sink deeper into the reflective, contemplative rhythm of night. Finally, Eleanor allowed herself to lay back fully, resting against soft pillows and heavy linens, her body relaxed, her mind tracing the delicate threads of experience. The house around her had settled into stillness, only the faintest creaks of wood and distant murmurs of night staff remaining as evidence of life. She allowed her thoughts to drift gently, each memory, sensation, and emotion mingling with the silver light of the moon, a quiet, glowing accompaniment to the slow rhythm of her heartbeat. The day had been lived fully, and now, in the intimacy of her private chamber, she surrendered to the gentle pull of sleep, knowing that in this gilded world, each tomorrow promised new beauty, new observation, and the quiet thrill of presence, elegance, and reflection. And as the lamps dimmed softly for the final time, Eleanor drifted into the calm embrace of night, the Gilded Age around her, its brilliance, elegance, subtle intrigue, and quiet majesty, lingering in the gentle shadows, a soft and enduring echo of a life lived wholly, beautifully, and deliberately in the golden embrace of her world. The first rays of sunlight slipped gently through the tall, draped windows of Eleanor Whitmore's chambers, scattering soft gold across polished floors and gilded moldings. The mansion, still quiet in the earliest hour, seemed to exhale with the day's first light, the soft rustle of curtains catching the morning breeze and the faint scent of dew drifting from the gardens below. Eleanor stirred beneath her linens, feeling the gentle warmth of the sun brushing her skin, the cool whisper of silk against her arms, and the subtle hum of life beginning to awaken within her gilded sanctuary. Rising slowly, she allowed herself a moment to absorb the serenity of the morning, to take in the soft interplay of shadow and light across the ornate ceiling, the delicate flicker of sunlight on polished wood, and the faint glimmer of crystal handles on her wardrobe. Servants, already attuned to the rhythms of the house, moved quietly through the corridors, adjusting drapes to let more light in, setting out fresh linens, and preparing the day's first breakfast with a precision born of years of practiced discipline. Eleanor noted these movements from the corner of her eye, appreciating the subtle choreography that made life in her home seamless, invisible, yet entirely present. Her morning attire was chosen with the same deliberate care that had characterized every other aspect of her life. A gown of pale morning blue, soft and flowing, accented with delicate lace along the collar and cuffs, awaited her. As her maids assisted her, fastening each hook and smoothing every fold, Eleanor felt the familiar thrill of preparation, the soft brush of fabric, the gentle tug of silk against her skin, and the tiny weight of jewelry, a single pearl pendant resting lightly against her collarbone, a small brooch pinned just so, all contributing to the subtle poetry of her presence. Once dressed, Eleanor moved toward her private terrace overlooking the gardens. The morning air was crisp, carrying the delicate scent of flowers newly kissed by dew, and the faint aroma of earth warmed by early sunlight. The fountains sparkled faintly in the gentle rays, and the statues, their marble surfaces softened by the pale glow, seemed almost alive in the quiet of dawn. She inhaled deeply, letting the freshness of the air fill her senses and steady her thoughts, feeling herself fully rooted in both the physical beauty and the careful artistry of her surroundings. Breakfast awaited in the sunlit salon, the table set with polished silverware, delicate china, and a modest selection of fruits, breads, and teas. Eleanor moved gracefully to her seat, noting the subtle interplay of light across the tablecloth, the soft gleam of polished utensils, and the gentle aroma of tea leaves steeping in fine porcelain pots. The morning meal was not merely sustenance. It was a carefully orchestrated moment of calm and preparation, a ritual that set the tone for the day to come. Each sip of tea, each bite of freshly baked bread, was observed and appreciated, a sensory meditation on the quiet luxury of life in the Gilded Age. After breakfast, Eleanor wandered through her chambers once more, attending to correspondence, reviewing invitations, and planning the engagements of the day. Each letter, each note, each carefully penned word carried significance, not merely in content, but in subtlety, nuance, and the art of presence. Eleanor's mind moved fluidly between reflection and anticipation, balancing the obligations of social grace with the quiet pleasure of observation, noticing the fine details that others might overlook. The way sunlight caught the edge of a silver tray, the soft flutter of lace on a sleeve, the subtle glimmer of dew on garden petals. The household itself awakened fully as the morning progressed. The gentle rhythm of activity, the soft footfalls of servants, the faint clink of trays, the rustle of curtains, the hum of voices coordinating the day's events, created a layered symphony of motion and sound. Eleanor moved through it with awareness, both participant and observer, noting the harmony that allowed the estate to function so seamlessly. Every detail mattered. The alignment of cushions, the placement of flowers, the subtle adjustment of lighting to accentuate both space and mood. In these hours, the Gilded Age revealed not only its splendor, but its discipline, its careful orchestration, and the quiet beauty of a life lived fully in attention, elegance, and conscious design. Later in the morning, Eleanor prepared to walk through the gardens, a private ritual that combined observation, reflection, and the gentle pleasure of movement. The paths were smooth and well-kept, bordered by meticulously trimmed hedges and vibrant blooms. Birds sang softly in the trees, their songs mingling with the rustle of leaves and the gentle splash of water from the fountains. Eleanor moved slowly along the gravel paths, her gloved hands brushing lightly against the petals of flowers, her eyes tracing the symmetry of the gardens, and her mind absorbing both the tranquility and subtle drama of natural beauty enhanced by human artistry. The morning air carried hints of the day to come, the faint, distant clatter of carriages, the muted hum of the city beyond the estate walls, and the soft murmur of voices as early visitors arrived. Eleanor, fully attuned to the rhythms of both her household and the wider social world, welcomed these moments with gentle awareness, understanding that each interaction, each observation, each detail contributed to the tapestry of life she inhabited. Even in the quiet of morning, the world was alive with nuance, elegance, and subtle energy, threads that she would weave into the unfolding narrative of her day. Eleanor paused near a marble fountain in the garden, watching water arc gracefully through the air and catch the morning light. The soft splash created a gentle counterpoint to the distant hum of life beyond the gates. She inhaled the fragrant blend of flowers, earth, and water, letting the sensory richness ground her in the present moment. This was the quiet power of the Gilded Age, the interplay of natural beauty, human design, social observation, and personal reflection, all converging to create a world both deliberate and alive. By mid-morning, Eleanor returned to her chambers to prepare for the day's engagements, afternoon calls, visits, and subtle social navigation that demanded grace, awareness, and poise. Each action, from the choice of attire to the placement of a glove or brooch, carried meaning. Every gesture, every glance, every carefully measured word would contribute to the intricate choreography of presence and perception that defined her life in the gilded world she inhabited. The mansion itself seemed to acknowledge the rhythm of the day, the air carrying the faint scent of polished surfaces, fresh flowers, and sun-warmed stone, all harmonizing in the orchestration of an entirely curated existence. As Eleanor paused briefly at the window, overlooking the city streets, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Life beyond the gates continued in its chaotic, vibrant rhythm, vendors calling their wares, children playing along cobblestone lanes, the occasional carriage rolling by. Yet within her estate, time seemed to move with deliberate elegance, each hour filled with purpose, beauty, and subtle observation. She inhaled deeply, savoring the contrast, the control, and the delicate thrill of inhabiting a space where every detail mattered, every action held significance, and every day offered the possibility of refinement, discovery, and quiet triumph. And so, with the soft sunlight warming her shoulders and the gentle hum of her household moving in quiet rhythm, Eleanor Whitmore stepped fully into the new day. The Gilded Age, with all its beauty, complexity, and carefully orchestrated splendor, awaited her once more, and she moved through it with grace, poise, and the quiet awareness that each day, like each step, each glance, and each gesture, contributed to the luminous narrative of her gilded life. The late morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Eleanor Whitmore's drawing room, scattering soft patterns across the polished parquet floors. Eleanor, fully dressed for her day's engagements, paused briefly to adjust the delicate folds of her gown, a soft rose silk accented with pale lace and fine embroidery, the subtle shimmer catching the light with every motion. Her gloves were fitted with care, the tiny seams adjusted to rest perfectly on her wrists, and a single cameo brooch graced the neckline of her bodice. Jewelry, carefully chosen, whispered quiet elegance without drawing undue attention, a statement of taste rather than ostentation. The morning's tranquility was gradually punctuated by the low hum of activity in the mansion, footfalls on polished floors, the rustle of crisp linens, and the measured preparation of the household staff. Servants arranged delicate baskets of fruit, carefully poured tea into porcelain cups, and prepared carriages for departure. Eleanor moved among them with grace and quiet authority, exchanging polite words, offering subtle smiles, and observing the interplay of motion and attention that kept the estate running seamlessly. Every detail mattered: the placement of cushions in the carriage, the gleam of polished brass fittings, the alignment of silk curtains, small things, yet integral to the aesthetic and comfort of the journey ahead. The carriage, a gleaming vehicle of polished wood and brass, awaited at the front gates. Eleanor stepped inside with careful composure, letting the soft cushions absorb the movement, the silk drapery framing the windows. The horses, sleek and well-groomed, stamped their hooves with quiet impatience, nostrils flaring, tails flicking in subtle rhythm. As the coachman settled into his seat and guided the reins, the carriage rolled forward, wheels clicking along cobblestone streets, the rhythmic motion a gentle counterpoint to Eleanor's internal observation of the city beyond her gates. The streets of the city, now fully awake, unfolded before her like a living tableau. Vendors called their wares, children darted through narrow alleys, and shopkeepers arranged displays that gleamed in the morning sun. Eleanor's eyes traced the subtle patterns of commerce and life, noting the contrast between her curated, gilded environment and the bustling energy of the streets. She observed the people as both participant and observer. The gestures of the market, the way sunlight caught the surfaces of polished copper pots and glassware, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the faint aroma of coal smoke and flowers from street-side stalls. Each detail was recorded, absorbed, and integrated into her understanding of the world she moved through. A delicate balance of refinement and awareness, elegance and curiosity. Arriving at her first social call, Eleanor alighted gracefully, the skirts of her gown flowing in soft waves around her ankles. The mansion she visited was nearly as grand as her own, gilded in ornamentation, polished to perfection, and alive with subtle activity. She was greeted warmly at the door, the exchange of pleasantries smooth and deliberate, each word chosen with care, each gesture measured to convey elegance, respect, and social awareness. The rooms she moved through were rich with texture, polished mahogany, delicate tapestries, ornate mirrors reflecting the sunlight, and faint scents of fresh flowers mingling with the subtle perfume of her hosts. During her visit, conversation flowed with careful grace. Topics ranged from art and literature to the subtleties of social connection and observation. Eleanor listened attentively, offering gentle smiles, occasional interjections, and well-placed commentary that reflected both her knowledge and her poise. Every glance, nod, and gesture carried weight, part of the silent choreography of Gilded Age social interaction. Laughter, soft and deliberate, punctuated moments of connection, while the quiet understanding of unspoken nuance lingered in the air, a reminder that presence, elegance, and attention to detail were as essential as words themselves. When the visit concluded, Eleanor returned to her carriage, her steps measured, her posture immaculate. The return journey through the city offered a fresh perspective, as the sunlight shifted and cast new patterns across the streets. Shop windows glimmered, children's laughter drifted from alleyways, and the faint scent of fresh pastries mingled with the warmth of sun-baked stone. The rhythmic movement of the carriage, the soft clop of hooves, and the gentle swaying of the vehicle created a meditative cadence, giving Eleanor time to reflect on the subtle intricacies of her morning engagements and the delicate balance of observation, influence, and social navigation that defined her life. Back at her estate, Eleanor moved through the gardens once more, seeking a private moment before the afternoon's engagements continued. The sun had climbed higher, casting golden light across fountains and hedges, illuminating the dew that lingered on petals. She inhaled the fragrance of blooming flowers, let her fingers trail along sculpted marble, and allowed herself to pause, to absorb the interplay of beauty, design, and natural rhythm. Even amidst social obligations, there were these pockets of quiet reflection, moments where the richness of her environment could be appreciated fully, and where the delicate artistry of the Gilded Age could be felt with all senses attuned. The afternoon promised further calls and engagements, each demanding the same balance of presence, elegance, and subtle observation. Eleanor prepared once more, adjusting gloves, smoothing the folds of her gown, and allowing herself a faint, anticipatory smile. The world of the Gilded Age was as much about anticipation as execution. Every moment, a carefully orchestrated note in a symphony of style, grace, and nuanced social performance. She was both participant and conductor, fully immersed in the rhythms of her golden world, aware of every detail, and attuned to the subtleties that made each interaction meaningful. As the carriage doors closed behind her, Eleanor felt the gentle thrill of motion, the soft sway of wheels, and the faint click of harnesses against polished brass. The city rolled past in a living tableau, alive with commerce, conversation, and the quiet poetry of everyday life. Yet within Eleanor's presence, every element, from the delicate shimmer of her gown to the subtle fragrance carried on the morning breeze, contributed to the orchestration of elegance, refinement, and conscious living. Each moment, each glance, each gesture was part of a deliberate dance, a gilded performance of life in an age defined by beauty, attention, and subtle power. And as the carriage carried her onward, through streets lined with sunlit facades, the rhythmic clip-clop of hooves blending with the distant murmur of the city, Eleanor Whitmore remained fully aware, fully present, and entirely immersed in the living narrative of the Gilded Age. A world both dazzling and deliberate, rich with sensory detail, subtle intrigue, and the quiet thrill of existence lived in conscious, elegant motion. The sun had begun its slow descent by the time Eleanor Whitmore returned to her estate, casting long, golden fingers of light across the manicured gardens and polished stone terraces. The warmth of the day lingered faintly on the marble balustrades, and the delicate rustle of leaves whispered through the hedges, carrying with it the subtle promise of evening. Eleanor paused for a moment at the top of the grand staircase, letting her gaze sweep over the estate she inhabited so fully, taking in the symmetry of paths, the gentle arc of fountains, and the soft glimmer of sunlight on polished windows. Each detail seemed alive, a reflection of the meticulous orchestration that defined her world, and she felt the familiar thrill of moving through it with awareness, grace, and subtle authority. Inside, the household moved in quiet, purposeful rhythm. Servants prepared for the coming evening, polishing silver, arranging fresh flowers, laying out delicate lace linens, and setting out the day's attire and accessories for Eleanor and her guests. The scent of rosewater mingled with the faint aroma of citrus from polished floors, creating a sensory tapestry that hinted at refinement, elegance, and understated luxury. Eleanor moved among them with ease, offering gentle guidance, acknowledging effort with subtle nods, and maintaining the calm, poised presence that had defined her throughout the day. Even in these moments of preparation, the Gilded Age revealed its layered beauty, the artistry of human effort, the harmony of environment, and the quiet, deliberate attention to detail that elevated every aspect of daily life. Eleanor's attire for the late afternoon engagement was carefully selected. A gown of soft ivory silk, accented with pale gold embroidery along the bodice and cuffs, awaited her. The delicate fabric caught the fatting sunlight through her chamber's tall windows, shimmering subtly with every movement. Her hair, partially pinned back with a comb of mother-of-pearl and tiny pearls, framed her face gently, soft tendrils falling in carefully curated waves. Jewelry was modest but deliberate, a single bracelet of finely wrought gold and a small pendant that caught light at the slightest turn of her head. Every element, from the shoes beneath her gown to the faint scent of her perfume, contributed to the orchestration of her presence, a quiet but undeniable declaration of taste, refinement, and awareness. As she moved to the carriage that would take her into the city for a cultural engagement, Eleanor allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The rhythmic clop of hooves, the gentle sway of the vehicle, and the faint hum of the streets offered a meditation in motion, a space to consider the intricate balance of public display and private observation that defined her life. She inhaled the crisp afternoon air, carrying the subtle scent of polished leather, fresh flowers, and warm earth, letting it mingle with the lingering memory of earlier encounters. The city, vibrant and alive, unfolded before her like a canvas. Sunlit facades, shop windows gleaming with displays, and the faint buzz of life in narrow streets and wider avenues alike. Arriving at her destination, Eleanor stepped lightly onto the sun-warmed pavement, the soft rustle of her gown accompanying her measured steps. Today's engagement was at a gallery hosting a new exhibition, canvases that depicted landscapes, portraits, and subtle social commentary, each framed in gilded wood and hung with precision along the tall walls of the salon. Eleanor allowed herself to pause before each piece, observing brushstroke, composition, and the interplay of light and shadow that gave the scenes life. The muted murmur of other visitors, the soft shuffle of silk on floors, and the faint scent of varnish and canvas blended into a sensory backdrop that heightened the quiet thrill of aesthetic engagement. She moved among the displays, exchanging polite observations with fellow visitors, compliments on technique, gentle inquiries about inspiration, and the occasional shared glance of recognition. Conversations were delicate, thoughtful, and infused with an unspoken understanding of social etiquette, an intricate dance of intellect, taste, and subtle influence. Eleanor participated with ease, offering insights without dominance, listening attentively, and maintaining the quiet poise that marked her presence. Each interaction was an opportunity to observe, reflect, and contribute to the layered tapestry of relationships and knowledge that defined her social world. As the afternoon light softened toward early evening, Eleanor lingered by a large window in the gallery, watching the sun dip behind distant rooftops and illuminate the city with golden hues. The streets below glimmered with movement, carriages rolling past, children darting along sidewalks, and shopkeepers closing windows as the day drew to close. She inhaled the faint scent of evening air mingling with the aroma of polished wood and canvas, letting the sensory richness of the moment deepen her awareness. This transitional time, the quiet pause between the structured rhythm of day and the orchestrated elegance of evening, allowed Eleanor to move gracefully from one stage of the day to the next, each moment deliberately observed, fully experienced, and integrated into the ongoing narrative of her gilded existence. Returning to her carriage, Eleanor allowed herself a soft smile at the thought of the evening yet to unfold. Another gathering, another opportunity to move through the delicate dance of elegance, observation, and social interplay. The carriage moved steadily through the city, the wheels clicking against cobblestones, the gentle sway creating a rhythm that mirrored her own inner cadence. She observed life beyond the gates once more, noting the interplay of light and shadow across buildings, the soft glimmer of lanterns preparing to be lit, and the subtle fragrances of evening that mingled with the fatting warmth of the day. Each detail was absorbed, appreciated, and filed into memory, the fullness of the Gilded Age experience resonating with every sense. By the time Eleanor returned to her estate, the early evening had taken hold. The gardens were bathed in soft, golden light fading into twilight, fountains glimmering, and statues casting delicate shadows across trimmed hedges. She moved through the halls with quiet purpose, greeting staff, offering guidance for the evening, and taking a moment to appreciate the harmony of her surroundings. The mansion, in its meticulous balance of beauty, order, and subtle life, seemed to breathe with her own awareness, a reflection of the deliberate orchestration that defined every hour of existence in this gilded world. And as the lamps were lit, casting a warm glow across polished floors, gilded moldings, and carefully arranged flowers, Eleanor allowed herself a quiet moment of anticipation. The day had moved from the delicate rhythms of morning, through the vibrant engagement of the city and cultural pursuits, into this early evening of reflection and preparation. Each moment, each observation, each deliberate gesture was a note in the symphony of life she inhabited fully, a life of elegance, awareness, subtle influence, and the quiet thrill of existence in the golden embrace of the Gilded Age. The first glow of twilight softened the sky as Eleanor Whitmore stepped through the polished front doors of her mansion once more, her gown now a masterpiece of evening elegance, deep sapphire silk, glinting faintly with threads of silver, flowing in measured folds that caught the lamplight with every movement. Pearls adorned her neck and wrists, carefully chosen to accentuate rather than dominate, and her hair was arranged in a delicate, cascading style, framed by subtle jeweled pins. She inhaled the faint scent of roses lingering in the corridor from earlier arrangements and allowed herself a small smile, anticipating the evening's grandeur, the glittering dance of light, music, and human presence that defined the Gilded Age at its most luminous. The ballroom awaited, a vast space that shimmered with gilded chandeliers, polished marble floors, and walls lined with mirrors that multiplied every flicker of candlelight. Guests, already gathered, were immersed in a careful choreography of presence and observation, each movement deliberate, each gesture an art of subtle display. Men in tailored suits and frock coats adjusted their gloves, polished their shoes, and engaged in polite conversation with measured smiles. Women in flowing gowns of every imaginable color adjusted lace collars, exchanged delicate whispers, and allowed their eyes to wander thoughtfully, each observation weighted with social awareness. Eleanor moved through this living tableau as both participant and observer, her presence recognized, acknowledged, and admired without ostentation, a perfect embodiment of elegance and poise. Music began to rise from the orchestra stationed at one end of the ballroom, a delicate overture of strings and woodwinds that threaded through the air like silk ribbons. Eleanor's attention shifted seamlessly between the musicians, her fellow guests, and the soft, golden light that reflected off crystal chandeliers. The rhythm of the music matched the rhythm of her own awareness. Every note, every glance, Every gesture was absorbed, appreciated, and woven into the tapestry of her experience. She felt herself both moving with and observing the world around her, a delicate balance of presence, reflection, and the quiet thrill of fully inhabiting a moment. The evening unfolded with the grace of a carefully composed symphony. Conversations ebbed and flowed, punctuated by laughter, delicate gestures, and the occasional clink of glasses. Eleanor engaged with friends and acquaintances, offering thoughtful observations on art, literature, and recent social developments. Each word was measured, each smile deliberate, each nod a subtle acknowledgement of shared understanding. She noted the interplay of body language, the nuanced inflection of voices, and the careful placement of objects, fans, gloves, jewelry, as integral elements in the complex choreography of social interaction. Every interaction was both intimate and public, a subtle performance in the theater of the gilded world. Dancing soon commenced, couples taking to the floor with measured steps, their movements guided by music and social etiquette alike. Eleanor joined in with quiet confidence, the silk of her gown whispering against marble, her hands poised in perfect form, and her eyes attuned to the subtle cues of her partner and the flow of the floor. Each turn, dip, and glide was both practiced and spontaneous, a delicate balance of discipline and joy. The dance, like all other elements of the evening, was a reflection of the Gilded Age itself, elegant, precise, yet alive with energy, emotion, and the thrill of human connection. Throughout the evening, Eleanor moved seamlessly between observation and participation. She paused near windows to admire the soft glow of lanterns outside, casting light across polished terraces and trimmed gardens. She exchanged whispers with friends by the fountains, their conversation delicate and layered with social nuance. She allowed herself moments of quiet reflection, noting the interplay of candlelight on crystal, the soft murmurs of servants attending discreetly to every need, and the subtle shifts in energy that marked the flow of the gathering. Each moment was a brushstroke in a living painting, every detail contributing to the overall composition of elegance, beauty, and social mastery. Refreshments were offered at intervals, delicate pastries, finely brewed teas, and sparkling water served in crystal glasses. Eleanor sampled them with the same attentiveness she brought to every element of the evening, savoring flavor, texture, and aroma alike. These small indulgences were part of the larger choreography of refinement, providing both pleasure and a quiet opportunity to pause, observe, and absorb the elegance surrounding her. She allowed herself a subtle smile at the memory of a witty exchange, the soft touch of a partner's hand in dance, or the gentle hum of music carrying through the air, all harmonizing in a symphony of sensory experience. As the night deepened, Eleanor found herself in quieter corners of the ballroom, observing the ebb and flow of guests, the subtle shifts of conversation, and the interplay of social nuance. The chandeliers cast a soft, golden glow across polished surfaces, creating pools of light and shadow that danced with the movement of the evening. She felt the delicate thrill of awareness, the soft hum of elegance, and the intimate understanding of her place within this curated, gilded world. Every gesture, glance, and whispered word was a note in the composition of the night, a living testament to the grace, attention, and artistry of her social universe. Toward the late hours of the gathering, Eleanor allowed herself a moment to step onto a balcony overlooking the gardens, now bathed in soft moonlight. The fountains shimmered faintly, the hedges cast gentle shadows, and the distant hum of the city beyond the gates offered a muted counterpoint to the quiet intimacy of her observation. She inhaled deeply, savoring the fragrance of night-blooming flowers mingling with the crisp evening air, letting the sensory richness of the moment ground her in presence, reflection, and quiet exhilaration. This was the Gilded Age distilled, a world of light, shadow, sound, and fragrance, orchestrated to perfection, yet alive with subtle energy, emotion, and human connection. As the final notes of music lingered and the last guests made their graceful exit, Eleanor remained in the ballroom for a moment, absorbing the residue of elegance and vitality that had filled the space. The soft clink of glass, the muted shuffle of departing feet, and the gentle rustle of fabric all became part of a layered memory of the night, a living record she would carry with her into the quiet intimacy of her chambers. She felt a sense of completion, a delicate satisfaction, and a quiet anticipation for the reflective moments that awaited her after the orchestrated grandeur of the evening. Returning to her private chambers, Eleanor allowed herself a deep, calm exhale. The house, now fully settled into night, carried the gentle echoes of the gathering in soft shadows, muted scents, and polished surfaces. She removed the delicate layers of her evening attire, allowing the soft robes of night to settle around her, and paused briefly by a window, gazing out at the moonlit gardens where fountains sparkled faintly and statues seemed to keep quiet, eternal watch. In these private moments, Eleanor reflected on the beauty, complexity, and subtle intrigue of her day, feeling fully immersed in the rhythm, elegance, and consciousness that defined her life in the Gilded Age. And so, as the lamps were dimmed and the mansion exhaled into stillness, Eleanor Whitmore allowed herself to sink into the quiet intimacy of night. The brilliance, music, and subtle drama of the Gilded Age lingered in her memory, a soft, glowing resonance that would carry her through dreams, reflections, and the anticipation of another luminous day to come. The chandeliers have dimmed now. The laughter has softened into echoes that float like dust motes in the moonlight, suspended in the still air of the ballroom. Outside, the last carriage has rolled away, leaving only the quiet hum of the night and the faint shimmer of lamplight on marble steps. Somewhere upstairs, Eleanor Whitmore, or perhaps you drifts between wakefulness and dreams, her world of silk, candlelight, and soft perfume fading gently into memory. The Gilded Age settles back into its frame in history, waiting patiently for another night when someone will come knocking on its golden doors again. Take one last look at the glowing hall, at the polished mirrors, at the music lingering faintly in the air. Feel the hush, the stillness, the elegance of a moment that belongs to another century, but somehow still lives in the rhythm of your breath tonight. And as you let your own eyes grow heavy, remember that this world, all of it, from the candle-lit parties to the whispered conversations, is always just a story away. If you've enjoyed this journey through time, make sure to subscribe to MoonieGuide so you don't miss the next story we wander into together. Leave a comment below and tell us where you're listening from. It's always so special to see our little community stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. And when you're ready for another night of slow storytelling, another trip through the corridors of history and dreams, we'll be right here waiting to guide you once again. Until then, good night from MoonieGuide, and may your dreams tonight be just a little bit gilded. Sparkles.